Chapter 26. I meet with Abby each day before the trial to go over details regarding my case against Sean. I decided to let Abby represent me as my lawyer because I trust her and I know she has my best interest at heart. Thursday comes too quickly, and before I know it, Ian is driving me to the courthouse. This time, when I stand in front of the steps, I am not nervous about having to represent a case, but rather having to be one who is represented. I walk down the same marble hallway I did when I represented Mrs. Duval. Ian puts his arms around me and whispers, "Remember, I will be behind you." He places a kiss on my cheek and we walk into the courtroom. Abby is sitting at the desk looking over the files for my case. I see my mom, dad, and Austin sitting behind her. Ian sits down beside of Austin, which is placed directly behind the plaintiff's seat, and I take the unfamiliar seat beside of Abby. A few minutes later, Sean is escorted from the side door, and suddenly I can't breathe again. He is unshaven and his eyes look tired. He has on a well-pressed suit, which I can tell it is expensive by the material. "Don't let him get in your head," Abby says, leaning in to me. I follow him with my eyes never breaking contact all the way to his seat to show him he has not broken me. The judge walks in and proceedings start. I give my testimony, telling them about the threatening letters I had received and the events of the night I was attacked. Sean is being represented by his brother, who basically attacks me on the stand. I look over at Ian, and I can see the crease form between his dark eyes. Abby presents into evidence pictures taken in my office the night of the attack. Other pictures presented into evidence are of the flowers and the letters I received at the office, as well as pictures taken from the hospital when I first arrived. This is the first time I've seen these pictures. I look at the dark bruises on my eye and the swelling of my lips. I put my hand up to my face, remembering the painful blows delivered to my face. I can't look at them anymore, so I shift my gaze and my eyes lock with Ian's. I know it is taking everything in him not to walk over to Sean to finish what he started the night of the attack. I am excused from the stand. I stand up, rubbing my hands down my skirt to smooth it out. As I am walking back to my seat, I notice Sean never takes his eyes off of me. I sit down, and Ian leans up, placing his hands on my shoulders, and his touch instantly puts me at ease. Abby calls Ian to the stand as a witness, and he tells the court what he saw when he ran into my office, and I can tell that he is trying to hold back tears. After everyone gives their testimonies and the witnesses have been called to the stand, Sean's brother states his closing arguments. I can't help but to roll my eyes when he pleads a case of temporary insanity. The judge calls for recess, and Abby looks over at me and says, "There's no way the judge is going to buy that temporary insanity bullshit with all of the evidence we have. The only thing he has a case of is being an ass," I say. As we are walking out of the courtroom, I notice my parents are standing in the hall talking to Austin, so I walk over to them. "Hollyn, how are you doing, sweetie?" my mom says, giving me a hug. I look at her and say, "Mom, I'm sorry for what I said to you the other day. Well, you were mad, and I understand why." She turns to Ian and says, "I'm sorry how I've treated you. I know you care about Hollyn, and you showed that by being here for her today." After lunch, which I basically picked at instead of eating, we go back to the courthouse and prepare for the verdict. The judge comes back in, and we all rise. After he takes a seat, he tells Sean to remain standing. He looks at him and says, "In the case of Hollyn Jacobs versus Sean Douglas, you have been found guilty of premeditated breaking and entering with intent to assault." I hear a faint gasp behind me. The judge says, "Since you have no previous record, you are sentenced to 3 years in prison with eligibility of parole, pending psychiatric evaluation in 1 year. Court is adjourned." I look at Abby in disbelief and start yelling, "That is all that bastard gets for beating the shit out of me?" "Hollyn, calm down. We are lucky he even got that sentence with the connections he has," she says, gathering up the folders on the table. I look back at Ian, who looks just as stunned and pissed as I do. I turn my head and see Sean is being led to the side door in front of me. He looks at me with a cold stare and smiles. "That son of a bitch," I hear Ian say through gritted teeth. We walk out of the courtroom, and suddenly I start to feel sick. "Ian, I need to get out of here," I say, and we drive back to his house in silence. When we get to the house, Ian stomps into the living room, throwing off his jacket, immediately undoing his tie. He walks to the bedroom, taking off his shirt and then his shoes, mumbling something under his breath. I walk behind him, watching him take his clothes off, and even though the stress of today, I start aching for him to be inside of me. He looks so handsome in his dark gray suit and light blue silk tie today. I am lost in watching Ian when realization hits me. What if he gets paroled in a year and comes after me again, but this time you won't be here to stop him, I say as I'm starting to shake at the thought of my nightmare coming true. Ian walks up to me, pulling me into his chest. He lays my head against his beating heart so I can hear it and says, "As long as you hear that heartbeat, I will never let that happen." I look up at him, needing to be as close to him as I can be right now. I want his lips to touch every inch of my body and want my lips to touch every inch of his body. I inhale his scent and kiss him. It is like he reads my mind because he deepens the kiss, slamming his mouth onto mine harder. He picks me up, so I'm straddling him, and carries me over to the bed. He gently lays me down, and I pull at his hair, deepening our kiss more. I place one palm on his chest, rolling him over so he is on his back. I slide off of the bed so that I'm standing in front of Ian. He props himself on his elbows so I'm not out of his view. I pulled the pins out of my hair, letting my hair fall around my shoulders in soft waves. I slowly unbutton my dress shirt and let it slide down my arms to the floor. I keep my eyes on him so he can see the craving I have within me. I slowly unzip my skirt and let it fall to my ankles, stepping out of it. I am in my lingerie of blue silk, the color of the ocean, covered in white lace, and he licks his lips. I unclasp my bra, letting it slide down my arms to the floor. I watch him as his chest rises and falls quicker. I slowly slide my thong down my legs. He starts to get up to touch me, and I wave my finger at him, telling him no. You took care of me in more ways than one while I was healing, and now I want to give you something back, I say with a seductive look. I walk over to the corner of the room where a chair is sitting, and I grab it. I sit it in front of him, where he is now sitting on the edge of the bed. I sit in the chair and throw one leg over the arm of it. I take my hands and grab my breast. I stick my finger in my mouth and slowly pull it out, making sure it is nice and wet. I slide my hand down the center of my stomach into my slit. I'm still looking at Ian as he is grabbing his cock. I slowly do circular motions and my breathing picks up. I throw my head back as I start to move my finger faster. I slowly slide 2 fingers inside of me and I grab my right breast with the other hand. I'm building up my orgasm when Ian licks his lips and then he says, "Fuck this. If you want to play games, Miss Jacobs, I can play games." He stands up and walks over to where I'm sitting and leans over me. I can feel his breath in my face, and I take my fingers and stick them into his mouth. I can never get tired of tasting you. He leaves the room, leaving me aching for an orgasm. I hear a door open and then shut. "Ian, where are you going?" I yell. He comes back into the bedroom with a roll of white satin twine. I assume he uses it on his boat. He comes over to me, grabbing my hand, leading me to a room that has an exercise equipment. "What are you doing?" I ask as he raises my hands up to a chin bar that is mounted on the ceiling. He takes the satin twine, tying my hands to the bar, and then he leaves the room. "Where are you going now?" I yell. A few seconds later, he walks back in with his blue tie that he wore to court today. He places it over my eyes, tying it so that I can't see. I can smell his scent on the tie, which only makes me ache for him more. I am naked, blindfolded, and bound to the cool bar, feeling vulnerable for him to do anything he wants to me, and it turns me on. He is quiet, but I can feel that he is still in the room. When I move my wrist, the twine pinches, but it doesn't hurt. Instead, the sensation makes my body crave Ian's touch. Suddenly, my senses come alive when I feel his hands on my hips. I feel his breath brush up against my ear, and he whispers, "Now, Miss Jacobs, you can't touch me." He takes one finger and softly runs it from my chest, down between my breasts to my hairline. Even though his touch is soft, the sensation it is giving my body is enhanced. He takes his finger down my slit, and then it is gone. "Hollyn, you are so wet," he whispers. I'm begging for his touch again. He takes his tongue down my clit and back up. "Ian," I cry out. He softly rolls his tongue on my clit. He looks up and down my slit, taking my clit into his mouth. I'm building up to release a hard orgasm when he stops. "Not yet, Angel." He grabs each one of my legs and wraps them around him. The warmth of his body sends heat to my thighs. He rubs his hard length against me and then gently slides it in. I let out a breath after feeling the fullness. I want to touch him and grab his hair, pulling him closer to me, but I can't. He moves his hips slowly, making me cry out, "Ian, I need you faster." "Hollyn, you feel so good," he says, moving his hips faster and harder. He circles his hips, sliding in and out of me. I let out a scream as he stiffens his body, and we both release our orgasm. Ian lays his head against my breast. He's holding me up at the moment. I know my heart is bound to his like my wrists are bound to the bar. He lifts his head, and I unwrap my legs from around his body. He walks around me and unties the tie around my eyes. The sudden burst of light from the darkness causes me to squint. When Ian comes into view, he's standing in front of me smiling. He reaches up and unties the twine around my wrist. He picks me up and carries me to the bed. I snuggle into his chest, taking in his scent, and fall fast asleep. I wake up in the middle of the night and notice that Ian is not there. I get up and put on my silk purple robe to go look for him. I call out his name, going from room to room, then to the garage. When I open the door to the garage, I notice his motorcycle is gone. I go back to the bedroom and throw on a t-shirt and yoga pants and grab the keys to the car from the side table by the door. As I'm driving, I'm trying to think of where he would have went. He didn't leave a note saying he had to work, so I go to the one place that I know he goes to think. When I get to the lighthouse, I climb the steps. When I reach to the top of the catwalk, I see Ian standing at the rail with his head down. I walk up behind him and slip my arms around him. "Are you all right?" I ask him. "I couldn't sleep," he says, turning towards me. I tilt my head as I am questioning him about the reason for his inability to sleep. "I was watching you sleep and thinking about how close I came to losing you. Hollyn, I have fear of people walking out of my life, and I don't think I could take it if you did," he says. "Hey, I am not going anywhere," I say, looking up to reassure him. He places a kiss on my head. He wraps his arms around me. We stand in silence and watch the sun rise. It has been an emotional roller coaster this past month with the attack and the trial. I am in the kitchen making pork tenderloin, green beans, and mashed potatoes when Ian walks up behind me, placing his arms around me. He places kisses on my neck and whispers, "I have a surprise for you." I turn around to face him and say, "Does it have anything to do with ties and ropes again?" He grins and says, "As much as I would love to dominate your body again, it's not that." He places a kiss on my lips and then says, "I want to take you away. I booked a private retreat in Arkansas for the weekend." I wrap my arms around Ian's neck and say, "A vacation sounds wonderful." Friday morning, we get up early, load our luggage in the car, and Ian drives us to the airport. We walk into the airport, and a young blonde-haired flight attendant walks up to Ian. The way she is smiling, and he is smiling back at her, I could swear they know each other. I extend my hand to her and say, "I'm Hollyn." She shifts her smile to me, and then she says, "Mr. Haynes, your plane is ready." I look over at him confused, but Ian doesn't say anything. We proceed to walk out to the landing strip, where I see a private jet setting on the runway. "Is this your plane?" We walk up the steps to board the plane. "No, my grandfather's," he says with a grin. When I enter the plane, a smile comes across my face. Austin and Abby are sitting in the seats waiting on us. "What are you guys doing here?" I ask Abby. "Ian called us to invite us on the trip with the two of you. He said the resort was huge," she says with a smile. "We couldn't pass up a free trip," Austin says with a grin. I wrap my arms around Ian's neck, and I place my lips on his, giving him a hard kiss. Austin clears his throat. "Save that for the retreat. preferably behind closed doors. The blonde flight attendant walks in. "Mr. Haynes, the plane is ready to take off. Please take your seats and fasten your seat belts." We all take our seats except for Ian. He walks over to where I'm sitting. He bends down, and I can feel his breath in my face. He grabs my seat belt and fastens it around my waist, adjusting it. "Ian, that is tight enough," I say, not being able to move in my chair. "Just making sure you are safe," he says, placing a kiss on my cheek. He walks to his seat and fastens his seat belt. I look over at Abby, and she's staring at me, grinning from ear to ear. Abby returns to reading her book, and I sit back looking at Ian, thinking how much my life has changed since I came back home. I was happy with having the love for my career and focusing on becoming the best lawyer I could be. But when Ian walked into my life, it changed everything, and it opened my heart to what love feels like, making me the happiest I've ever been. Chapter 27. After we land at the airport in Arkansas, we get our luggage. We are walking outside, and I see a black limousine. A man dressed in a black suit, wearing a black hat, opens the door, and Ian leans down and whispers, "Another surprise." I look up at him and smile. "You really went all out for this," I say, thinking how much it must have cost him. "You have been through so much, Hollyn. I wanted to make it special," he says, placing his hand on my leg, and at this moment, I realize I don't think I could love this man any more than I do now. As we pull up into a circular driveway, I see a beautiful 2-story house sitting on 2 acres. "It's beautiful," I say, looking out of the window of the limousine. We come to a stop, and the man wearing the suit and a hat walks around and opens the door. We walk into a spacious living room with an open floor plan so you can see a fully stocked kitchen as soon as you enter the house. There are glass windows all around us. There is a stone fireplace and dark wood floors. I walk to the back of the house, and there is a door that leads out to a large wraparound patio. In the backyard, there is a large in-ground pool that overlooks the mountain. We walk upstairs, and I open a door that leads into a bedroom that has a window over the lake. My eyes land on a large king-size bed with a white down comforter. There is a door that leads into a private bathroom with a shower, jacuzzi tub, and double stone sinks. It is absolutely breathtaking. I walk back into the bedroom, and Ian walks in, carrying our luggage. I watch him sit down in the floor. I walk over to him and push him up against the wall, slamming my mouth onto his. "I take it that you like this place, Miss Jacobs," he says, placing his hands tightly around my waist. "It is amazing, thank you," I say as I hear Abby and Austin laughing down the hall. Ian laughs and says, "I think they like it too." All I'm interested in right now is tripping Ian and feeling that shock of electricity that I love every time he touches me. I push him harder against the wall and place my hips hard on his. He slides his tongue between my lips where I can taste the sweetness of his mouth. He pulls my leg up to where I can feel the fullness in his pants between my thighs. I feel my panties starting to get wet with want for him. Through labored breathing, he says, "You really don't know what you do to me, Angel." I don't respond. I take his bottom lip in between my teeth, biting it. I pull him by his shirt to the bed. I am in total control, and I like the way it makes me feel. I lay him down and unbutton his shirt. I place soft kisses down his chest, down to the edge of his pants. I unbutton them and pull them off. I grab his boxers, pulling them off. I am standing there, looking at Ian, laying halfway on the bed, completely naked, and my heart starts to race, thinking how lucky I am that he is mine. I pull my shirt up over my head. I take my jeans off, sliding them down my legs to the floor. I'm standing there in my white lace lingerie, and Ian has not taken his eyes off of me. I can tell that he feels the same way I do when I look at him. He sits up and pulls me close to him, unhooking my bra and sliding my panties down to the floor. He slides a finger down my slit, making me moan. "You are so wet," he says, and then he places his fingers in my mouth. I straddle him and say, "Only for you, baby." He gives me a cold, hard stare. "You better be wet only for me." I smile at him and say, "Only you." I lower myself onto his hardness, grasping as he enters me, and he lets out a moan. I slide up and down on him slow at first, slamming my mouth into his. I gradually pick up speed, holding onto his shoulders. "Damn, Hollyn, you feel so good," Ian says, placing his hands on my hips. Ian takes my nipples into his mouth, gently scraping his teeth on them. He takes his thumb and circles my clit. I clench my thighs around him, which makes me scream his name, while I release my orgasm. Ian throws his head back, and I feel the warm liquid flow inside of me from his release. After we get dressed and go downstairs, Abby and Austin are in the game room playing pool. Ian walks over to Austin and says, "In the morning, we are going fishing at Lake Norfolk." Austin takes a sip of his beer and says, "I'm going to teach you a thing or two about fishing." Ian laughs and says, "We will see about that." "What shall we do tomorrow without the men around?" Abby asks, turning towards me. Before I can answer, Ian says, "You girls are going to enjoy a massage I scheduled for you tomorrow." Abby bends over the pool table to make her shot and says, "Hollyn probably needs one after what I just heard." I blush and yell, "Abby." I look over at Austin, who shakes his head as if he's trying to get an image out of it. He looks at me and says, "I would prefer not to hear that." I look at him and say, "As long as you and Abby keep quiet, because I don't want to hear that." He looks at Abby, and this time it is her who blushes. Anytime I bring up her and Austin, she still says that they are just having fun, but the way that they look at each other tells a different story. I know they care about each other, even if they won't admit it. Later that night, we are lying in bed, and I'm lying on Ian's chest, wrapped in his arms. I take my finger and rub circles on his stomach. "Why do you love fishing so much?" He takes a deep breath and lets it out. It was somewhere I could go and escape my life for a little while. I lay there wondering what it was in his life he had to escape, and wonder if he's still trying to escape it. I picture Ian as a smiling little boy down by a river catching fish when I fall asleep. The next morning I wake up to Ian kissing me on the cheek, and it is still dark. "Where are you going?" I ask, looking at him through sleepy eyes. "Fishing," he says with a smile. "It's early," I say, looking at the clock. "We have to get an early start," he says, placing another kiss on my cheek. I roll back over, grabbing Ian's pillow so I can smell his scent, and I fall back to sleep. The next time I wake up, the sun is shining in through the window. I get up and go to the bathroom to brush my teeth and throw on a t-shirt and gray stretch pants that say University of Alabama on them. When I walk downstairs, Abby is eating a muffin and reading a magazine. I walk over to the refrigerator and grab some orange juice and a muffin off the counter. I walk over to the table and sit beside of Abby and start picking at my muffin. "I can't believe how early you have to get up to go fishing," Abby says, putting down the magazine. Ian says that it is the best time to catch fish, but I would rather sleep, I say, taking a bite of my muffin. I am watching Abby read her magazine very carefully. Then the doorbell rings. I walk over to the door, and when I open it, there are two older women are standing there with folding tables. One woman is tall with dark hair, and her name tag says Bev, and the other woman is tall with blonde hair, and her name tag says Ruth. "You have an appointment scheduled for massages," Bev says. "Yes, please come in," I say, stepping out of the way for them to enter. "Where would you like the tables?" says Ruth. "Here will be fine," I say, pointing to an open space in the living room. After the women set up the tables, they tell us to get undressed, handing us towels to place around us. We lay on our stomachs, sliding the towels down to cover our rears. I feel a little uncomfortable because being so exposed to strangers. I look over at Abby, and she is laying on her table relaxed. She has never been shy about her body. "Which one of you is Miss Jacobs?" Ruth asks. "I am," I say, answering her. "Mr. Haynes said you had an accident not too long ago, injuring your back. He gave special instructions to only do a light massage on your back, but to pay close attention to the muscles in your legs, Ruth says. All of a sudden, I feel oil hit my back, and then Bev starts massaging and kneading the muscles lightly. I close my eyes at the surprising enjoyment of Bev's strong hands. Ian really does love you, Abby says through a moan as Ruth massages her shoulders. I hope so, I say, feeling relaxed now. Could you imagine if Ian walked in here and there were two hot guys massaging us? Abby says with a laugh. No, and I have a feeling when he called to schedule the massage, he made sure it wasn't two guys. I say, smiling, remembering how he acted towards the therapist at the hospital. I don't think Austin would like it either, I say to Abby, and even though I can't see her face, I know she is smiling. After 30 minutes of massaging my back and my neck, Bev moves down to my legs, and per Ian's instructions, she deepens the massage. I can feel my muscles start to loosen. It is nothing like the feeling that Ian massages sends through my body, but it is still a good feeling, a different feeling. After our massages are over, we thank Bev and Ruth, then show them out the door. I then go upstairs to take a hot bath to top off the most relaxing day I have ever had. After I pour bubbles in the bathtub, I pin my hair up and slide down into the relaxing warm water. I place a rolled towel behind my neck and lay my head back. I am missing Ian and thinking how much he cares for me when I feel masculine hands on my shoulders, slowly moving to my breast beneath the bubbles. When I open my eyes, Ian is kneeling beside of the tub and I smile. Have you enjoyed your day? He asks, softly rubbing my cheek with his knuckles, leaving a thin line of bubbles on it. Yes, but I missed you, I say. I missed you too, he says, leaning into me, placing a soft kiss on my lips. He stands up, pulling his shirt over his head. He unbuttons his jeans, sliding them off with his underwear. My mouth starts to water and my eyes automatically drift down toward where his length lays between his legs. I thought you would be fishing all day. What are you doing back so early? Austin thought he would try and show me a thing or two about fishing and ended up falling in the lake, he says, sliding down the water facing me. I'm sure he was pissed, but I'm glad he fell in, I say, shifting my body so my breasts are laying on his chest. Ian places his hand behind my head and pulls me into his lips, sliding his tongue into my mouth. Then, to my surprise, he pulls away and stands up. He gets out of the bathtub and grabs a towel, wrapping it around him. He grabs another towel, holding it up. He looks at me and says, "It is my turn to be in control." I step out of the bathtub, and Ian takes the towel, making sure I am dried off. He lays the towel down and says, "Go lay down." I do, as he demands, and lay down in the middle of the bed. He walks into the bedroom to the end of the bed. I watch his gorgeous eyes scan my entire body. "Damn, you just don't know how sexy you are," he says. He gets on the bed and takes his tongue, licking up my body from the edge of my hairline to between my breast, making me arch my back. He takes my nipples in between his teeth, biting and sucking them to peaks. He places soft, gentle kisses all the way up my neck. I turn my head to the side so he gets better access. He takes my earlobe in between his teeth and sucks on it, making my body turn hot and beg for him. I turn my head and he places his lips on my mouth. I spread my thighs and grab his ass, trying to push him into me. "Remember, Hollyn, I am in control. If you try to take over again, I will make you wait longer. Do you understand?" he says. I nod my head to tell him I understand. I grip the comforter in my fist to give me self-control. He places soft kisses down my stomach, reaching the inside of my thighs. He takes the tip of his tongue, making circular motions inside of my thigh, on each side, making my clit throb. I grip the comforter tighter, and then he places light feather kisses along the top of my slit, making my body ache for more. He slides up my body and rubs his finger up my slit. I am at the point to where I can't take any more. Ian satisfies my need by sliding slowly inside of me. I moan. He starts moving his hips back and forth, and it feels so good. He starts circling his hips, and I can't hold back any longer. I pull him down to me so I can feel his lips on mine. I wrap my arms around him, running my fingernails gently down his back, making him moan. He moves his hips, going deeper, circling faster. I feel Ian stiffen, and he screams, "Fuck!" I throw my head back, arcing off of the bed. "Fucking hell, Ian!" I scream, feeling him release inside of me, breaking my orgasm free. We lay there, catching our breath, trying to slow our heart rates, holding each other in silence. I think how I've never felt love like this before. My body aches when I'm not with Ian, and when I'm with him, I can't get enough of him. I have given my heart and trust to him, but he is still keeping things from his past from me. The unshared secrets are making me feel like I don't know him completely, and that scares the hell out of me. Chapter 28. The next morning I wake up facing Ian, and he has me wrapped in his arms. I still can't help but feel like I'm stuck in a dream, and he will be gone as soon as I wake up. I place a soft kiss on his lips to reassure myself, and he pulls me in closer. I look up at him, thinking how his nightmares have completely stopped since I have been staying with him. His eyes start to flutter, and then those beautiful blue eyes fully open and land on me. He moans and pulls me in closer to him, placing a tender kiss on my forehead. "What do you want to do on our last day?" Ian asks. I roll over to my side so I'm looking at all of his handsomeness. I bat my long lashes at him and say, "Stay in bed with you all day." I start laying soft kisses on his stomach. "If you keep doing that, we won't get out of bed anytime soon." He sits up in bed and says, "As much as I would love to stay in bed with you, I'm taking you golfing," he says. "Golfing?" I say, scrunching my nose up. "You will love it," he says while getting out of bed. "I don't know how to golf," I say. "I will teach you," Ian says, pulling on a pair of black mesh shorts and a white t-shirt. I lay on my back and blow out breath, thinking how much I don't want to go golfing. After Ian goes downstairs, I put on a black pair of yoga shorts and a pink t-shirt. When I walk downstairs, I see that Ian is in the kitchen making breakfast. I walk over to him and say, "My favorite, spinach and bacon omelet." I walk into the game room where Austin and Abby are shooting pool. I sit on the stool. "Ian is taking me golfing," I say, rolling my eyes. Austin stops his pool stick mid-shot. He looks up at me and starts laughing. "You playing golf?" he says. "Ian said he was going to teach me," I say. "You shouldn't have too much trouble, Hollyn. From what it sounds like, you already know how to hold a long, hard stick," Abby says, starting to laugh. "I am in the room," Austin says, looking at Abby in disgust, which makes me laugh. Ian walks in the break room to tell us that breakfast is ready. Before I can sit down, he gets a phone call. "Sorry I have to take this," he says, looking down at his phone. I watch him walk into the next room, trying to figure out who he's talking to. "This is really good," Austin says, taking another bite of his omelet. "What are you guys doing today?" I ask, cutting my omelet. "I was thinking about laying by the pool today," Abby says. "I will probably just stay around here and keep Abby company," Austin says, taking a drink of his juice. I look over at Abby, who has a grin across her face. After we finish our breakfast, we take a shower and get dressed to go golfing. I am not too thrilled about it, but as long as I get to be with Ian, I am happy. When we get to the golf course, we rent 2 sets of golf clubs and walk out to a golf cart. Ian drives us to the first hole. I'm standing back watching him put the golf ball down, and then he takes a nice long swing. I would be happy just standing here admiring him all day. "Hollyn, it's your turn," Ian says, turning around to look at me. I walk up to where he places my ball on the ground. I am about to swing when he stops me. He walks up behind me, and I inhale his scent. He wraps his arms around me, placing his hands on the golf club, and I can feel the fullness in his pants brush up against my rear. At this moment, I'm starting to really like golf. Ian helps me swing, and after we hit our golf balls into the hole, we move to the next one. After 16 more holes, we are finished with the golf course, and I'm ready to go back to the resort and relax by the pool. When we get to the resort, I walk to the pool, but Abby and Austin aren't there. I walk back inside to go upstairs when I notice a note lying on the kitchen table. It reads, "Went out. We'll be back late." Ian walks up behind me, wrapping me in his arms. "Get dressed into something nice and meet me downstairs in about an hour," he says. "Another surprise?" I ask, smiling. "You are going to have to wait to find out," he says, walking into the kitchen. "Hollyn, you have something hanging in the closet to wear," he says, turning to face me. I run upstairs and immediately go to the closet. When I open it, there is a dress bag hanging up. I unzip it, and inside is a beautiful black halter-style mini dress. I look down, and there is a shoebox. I bend down and open it. Inside are black strappy high heels in my shoe size. I go to the bathroom and brush my teeth. After I get out of the shower, I dry and straighten my hair. I put on my makeup, giving myself smoky eyes, and extend my already long lashes, and this enhances my gray eyes. I put on my Russian red lipstick, making my lips look thicker. I walk over to my dresser and choose my silver diamond hoop earrings out of all the jewelry I packed. I walk up to a full-bodied mirror and almost didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. I have to admit, I do look sexy. I look down at my silver bracelet watch and notice it has been an hour. I open the door and immediately I am hit with a mouth-watering aroma. I walk down the steps and hear soft music playing. The room is lit by candles and the fireplace. I notice the table is set for two, with two long white candles lit in the center. When I reach the bottom of the stairs, my eyes immediately connect to Ian's. He is wearing dark gray dress slacks and a black button-down shirt. I watch him as he walks over to me, and I finally let out the breath I was holding. He takes my hand that radiates a shock through my body, sending my heart back into rhythm. "Wow, you look stunning," he says with a smile, placing a kiss on my cheek. "You look stunning as well," I say, taking him all in. "Thank you for the beautiful dress and shoes," I say as he leads me over to the table, pulling the chair out for me to sit down. "I ordered it and made arrangements for it to be delivered at the check-in office," he says, placing my napkin on my lap. "Abby picked it up for me when we were golfing," he says, pouring white wine in our glasses. He walks back into the kitchen and comes back carrying 2 plates. "Since you cooked for me, it was my turn to cook dinner for you." He places a plate of salmon, asparagus, and potatoes on the table in front of me. "This looks delicious," I say, watching him sit down. As we are eating, we are both stealing glances at each other. When we finish, Ian stands up, holding his hand out to me. "Dance with me," he says. I wrap my arms around his neck and inhale his scent. The back of my dress is open, so I feel the warmth of his hand land on my skin. I place a kiss on his lips and ask, "What did I do to deserve this?" He looks down at me and says, "I heard you have a birthday in a few days." I smile, figuring Austin or Abby told him. "I wanted to do something special for you," he says, "and I can't help but think how lucky I am to have this sexy man care for me as much as he does." Ian walks over to a table and picks up a small box wrapped with a purple bow, handing it to me. When I open the box, inside is a bracelet. It's made out of the same white rope he tied my hands with and is connected with a goldfish hook. "Since you like being tied up so much, I figured you could wear a little reminder on your wrist," he says, taking it out of the box and placing it around my wrist. I look down at the bracelet with tears threatening to fill my eyes, and Ian says, "Happy early birthday." The bracelet isn't anything fancy, but I've never been given a gift that meant so much to me. I wrap my arms around his neck, brushing my lips up against his neck, and whisper, "Thank you." I take his bottom lip between my teeth, biting it and sucking it, getting his taste in my mouth. I grab his hair and pull him down into my mouth. I feel one of his hands leave my back, and my zipper is slowly being undone. I slip my arms out of the dress, and it falls to the floor. I stand there in nothing but my black and cream lingerie and my heels. Ian takes a step back, looking at me with a yearning look in his eyes that makes me blush. He leads me over to a soft area rug that lays on the floor in front of the fireplace. He places his tongue in my mouth, guiding me down to the floor to lay on the rug. When I lay back, the rug feels so soft against my skin. He sits back on his knees and unbuttons his shirt, sliding it off. He bends over top of me, kissing my neck down to the top of my breast, sending my nerves into overdrive. He places a soft feather kiss on my lips, deepening the kiss with his tongue sliding into my mouth. He slides his hand up my left thigh, slowly and gently reaching my panties. He gently caresses between my thighs, and I can feel my panties starting to get wet. He circles his thumb over my panties on my clit, which makes me inhale a sharp breath. He takes his fingertips, gently grazing my skin down my stomach, making chill bumps appear on my skin. He slips his fingers underneath my panties and slides them down my slit. "Hollyn, I love the way you feel," he moans. He slides one finger inside of me, making me spread my legs farther so he can go deeper. Then I feel him slide another finger in, making my body instantly heat up. He holds his fingers inside of me and takes his thumb, rubbing my clit, causing me to move my hips, wanting to feel the friction from his fingers. He matches my movement, sliding them in and out as he rubs my clit. "Fuck, Ian," I scream. With the one last movement of his fingers, I feel the heat rush to my cheeks and I come. Ian slides his fingers out and sticks them in his mouth. He sits back on his knees again, and I sit up to undo his belt. I unbutton his pants as he is unhooking my bra. I slowly slide his pants down over his rock-hard ass. I slide his boxers down, springing free his hard length, and then he stands up to step out of his pants. He bends back down to me and takes the front of my panties in his teeth. He reaches behind me, grabbing at the back of them, pulling them off. He moves so he's in between my thighs, and then he slowly slides into me, making me faintly feel sore from where he had been inside of me this morning. He slowly and gently slides in and out of me, and we both pick up our breathing. I want to feel him deeper, so I wrap my legs around him, taking care not to hit his scar. I pull him down to kiss me, and he kisses me softly again. He slowly picks up speed with his hips. "Hollyn, you own my heart," he says. His kisses are softer, his movements are slower, and his touch is gentle. I realize he's making love to me. I feel my heart swell, and I feel an ache in my chest from happiness. Ian and I have had passionate sex before, but nothing compares to this. I spot the bracelet on my wrist, and I feel a lone tear run down my cheek. Ian stops wiping the tear away. "Hollyn, what's wrong?" he asks. "Don't stop. It's a happy tear," I say, and he smiles and starts moving his hips again. He places light kisses down my neck and circles his hips, picking up speed. He kisses my breast, lightly licking my nipple. He must be getting close to an orgasm because he knows just how to make me come. He places his thumb on my clit, putting gentle pressure on it, and begins to rub it. "You feel so good, Hollyn," he says as he stiffens. I arch my back, and we both release pure ecstasy around each other. We lay there holding each other, and I feel closer to him. I feel like we have connected on a deeper level. "I don't know what you have done to me, Hollyn, but it feels so good," he says, looking down at me. I place a soft kiss on his lips, thinking how with every beat of my heart, my love grows for him. I could lay in Ian's arms all night, but it's getting late, and I know Austin and Abby could walk in any minute. We grab our clothes and walk upstairs. As soon as we reach the top of the steps, the front door opens, and we hear Abby and Austin talking. We run into the bedroom and shut the door, laughing. Ian grabs my hand and says, "Come on, I haven't showered you in a while." I wake up in the middle of the night with my back on Ian's chest, and Ian cocooning me in his arms. I slowly start unwrapping myself because I need to go to the bathroom. After finally getting his arms from around me, I slowly get up, trying not to wake Ian. I walk to the bathroom, and then when I'm walking back to bed, I notice Ian's phone laying on the dresser, and it has a missed call. I remember his call he had gotten at breakfast, and I pick up his phone. I look over to make sure he is still sleeping. Then I look at his recent calls, biting my bottom lip. I notice he has a lot of calls from a private investigating company, making me bite my lip harder. I return his phone to the dresser and slowly crawl back into bed. I lay there, having a hard time falling back to sleep, thinking of the conversation I overheard at his house and him telling that someone from his past is trying to find him. I think of how many times that private investigator has called him and can't help but worry and wonder who was trying to find him. Chapter 29. When I wake up, I look over and see Hollyn laying there, looking like an angel. She has the softest skin and a glow to her face. She looks so damn innocent. I know she wasn't that experienced before me. I can tell by the way she stiffens before I enter her that her first time may have been a bad experience for her, but I don't ask. She sure as hell knows what she is doing because my body reacts every time I think about her or look at her. I crave being with her. I never thought I would find someone who makes me not want to be alone anymore. I place a gentle kiss on her cheek, and she starts to open her gorgeous eyes. "Good morning, Angel," I say. "Good morning," she says as she stretches. She looks at me with those pouty lips that I just want to take between my teeth, and she says, "I am sad we have to leave today." "Me too, but we both need to get back to work," I say, getting up to walk to the bathroom. I brush my teeth and run my hands through my hair. I look at myself in the mirror, and my gaze goes to the scar on my chest. I hate that fucking scar, how it looks, what it represents, and most of all, making me remember. I walk back to the bedroom to throw on some jeans. I notice Hollyn is still lying in the bed, staring at me with those sex-crazed eyes of hers. I would love nothing more than to be between her legs again, but we need to get packed and head back to the airport soon. I grab a t-shirt and slip it over my head. When I look back over at Hollyn, she gets up. I watch the sheet slide down her body, and she is completely naked. I quickly look away because if I don't, I'm going to remind her that her gorgeous body is mine. She walks into the bathroom, so I put our clothes back in their suitcases and grab my phone off of the dresser. After Hollyn comes back into the bedroom dressed, we grab everything and walk downstairs. The housekeeper I requested for this morning is already here cleaning up from the dinner I fixed last night. Abby and Austin are sitting at the kitchen table eating breakfast. I grab a muffin, and Hollyn grabs a banana. We sit down to eat. When I look over at her, she has the banana in her mouth, and I can't help but wish I was in her mouth. "Damn it, Hollyn," I say, getting up from the table. "What?" she asks with a mouthful of banana. I walk into the kitchen to get a cup of coffee, and Hollyn walks in behind me to throw away her banana peel. She goes to put her glass in the dishwasher. "I will get that, Mrs. Haynes," the housekeeper says. I look over at Hollyn, and she is blushing. "Oh no, I am not Mrs. Haynes," she says. The housekeeper smiles at her and says, "My apologies." I stare at the coffee pot, shocked by the hurt I feel from her saying she wasn't Mrs. Haynes. I know she isn't, but I want her to be. I am pulled out of my thoughts when the doorbell rings. I walk over and answer it. "Mr. Haynes, are you ready to go to the airport?" the man from the limo service asks. "Yes, we will be out in a minute," I say, grabbing our luggage. When we get to the airport, the jet has its engines going, so we board and take our seats. After I make sure that Hollyn's seatbelt is buckled and pulled tight, I take my seat, buckling my seatbelt. Once we are up in the air, my phone rings. It is the private investigator office again. I told them to stop fucking calling me. I excuse myself and walk to the back room, which is a bedroom for privacy. "Hello," I answer. "Mr. Haynes, this is David Carr from the PI's office again. Have you thought any more about what we have talked about? Look, I told you I don't want anything to do with Kinsey. Please don't call me again," I say, aggravated. "Mr. Haynes, I cannot tell you why she needs to speak with you other than it's important," Mr. Carr says. "I am not interested. Don't call me again or I'll have your ass for harassment," I shout in a whisper. Hollyn walks in as I end the call, and I know she can see the aggravation on my face. "Who was that?" she asks. "Nobody important," I say, not wanting to lie to her. "You seem pretty upset. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I say. "You don't look fine," she says with concerned eyes. "Hollyn, there you go with all your damn questions," I shout at her. Her eyes start to tear up, and she turns to walk out of the room. I'm sorry, baby, I say, grabbing her and pulling her to me. Ian, I don't want you to close down on me. If you are dealing with something, then I want to be here to help you, she says, looking up at me. I know, but it's really nothing to worry about, I say, trying to convince her, and I lift her chin up so I can give her a soft kiss. I need to get some things from your house before I go to my apartment, she says, looking up at me. I look at her in shock because I didn't realize she had planned to go back to her apartment. We never talked about it, but I don't want her to go. You haven't been cleared from the doctor yet, so you are coming home with me, I demand. Ian, I am better, so you don't have to look after me anymore, she says with a smile on her face. I start biting the inside of my jaw, trying to think of why she needs to come home with me other than the real reason. I don't want her to leave. Finally, I look at her and say, Hollyn, you're coming home with me until you are cleared by the doctor. End of story. Okay, I will come home with you, she says in defeat. I pull her into my chest, again inhaling her scent, and then we are told to take our seats because we are hitting bad weather. I buckle Hollyn in her seatbelt tightly again, and we hold hands the rest of the flight. After we arrive to my house, I unload our luggage, and Hollyn goes in to relax in the bath. I walk into my office to call Jay to check on things at the dock. My phone rings, but I don't recognize the number. Hello, I answer. Ian, a woman's voice says. Yes, this is Ian, I say. Ian, this is Kinsey, she says. I take a deep breath. Kinsey, why are you calling me? Ian, I really need to talk to you, but I don't want to do it over the phone. You need to tell your PI to stop harassing me. What we had in Wisconsin was a long time ago, and I would appreciate it if you didn't call me again. Ian, she pleads. Bye, Kinsey, I say, and then hang up the phone. After I make my quick phone call to Jay, I walk into the bedroom and take my shirt off. I walk into the bathroom, and Hollyn is laying in the bathtub. After my phone conversation with Kinsey, all I want to do is be close to Hollyn as I can. I unbutton my jeans and pull them off. She opens her eyes looking at me, standing there naked, and her jaw drops. Sit, I tell her, patting the side of the tub. She does as I say, and I grab her body wash and loofah as I slide down in the water. I take her right leg and rub the loofah from her ankle up to the top of her thigh. Then I take her left leg and do the same. She leans back on her hands, giving me better access. I sit up on my knees and squeeze the loofah over her breast so the water and soap flow down her body. I then gently slide the loofah down her breast to her stomach, making soft circles around her navel. Hollyn is sitting there with that gorgeous curvy body of hers. It is sexy how her body responds to my touch. My cock is standing tall, barely covered by the bubbles. I can tell by the way she shifts her body that she wants me as much as I want her. Hollyn stands up and grabs 2 towels, wrapping one around her curvy body that I can't get enough of. I stand up, and she hands me the other towel. I take it and wrap it around my waist. I pull her close to me, feeling her heart beat against my chest, trying to figure out why she stays around. I can't give her what she wants, the truth about my past, because I'm scared she won't look at me the same way that she does now. I can tell it is always on her mind by the way that she looks at that fucking scar on my chest. I lean down to place my lips on hers when the doorbell rings. I take in a deep breath and let it out slow. The doorbell rings again. I will be right back, I tell her, placing a quick kiss on her lips. I grab a pair of mesh shorts, slipping them on, and the doorbell rings again. When I open the door, my grandfather is standing there, dressed in a gray business suit and dark blue tie. Ian, what took you so long to answer the door? I was in the bathtub, I say, looking at him shocked. My grandfather has not come to visit me since I moved back to Rhode Island. Are you going to invite me in, son? He asks. I open the door wider and step out of the way so he can enter the house. What are you doing here? I ask, closing the door behind him. I came to see how things were going at the dock, he says, sitting on the couch. I stand there and looked at him confused. You could have called. Ian, I need to talk to you, and it wasn't something I could do over the phone. I called to see when the jet was scheduled to come back, and I booked a flight to be here when you got home. I look over and shut the bedroom door and whisper, Can we talk about this later? No, we can't, Ian. Your father has a hearing coming up for an early release. What? How in the hell did that happen? I shout, running my hands through my hair. The door to the bedroom opens and Hollyn walks out. Her hair is still damp, and she's wearing a white tank top that makes her boobs look like they are going to pop out. She has on a pair of gray Alabama sweatpants that hang low on her hips. I stare at her, and I have to tell myself to breathe. "Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt," she says, blushing, looking down at her clothes and then back up to me. She goes to walk back into the bedroom, and I quickly go over and grab her by her arm. "Hollyn, this is my grandfather, Gordon Haynes, but everyone calls him Gabe. He's the owner of Haynes Fishing Industry," I say, looking up at my grandfather. My grandfather stands with his broad shoulders and a straight line on his face looking at me. "Grandfather, this is Hollyn," I say, and then he looks at Hollyn. "Hollyn, it's nice to meet you, but if you would excuse us, we have some things to discuss," he says. I give Hollyn a quick kiss on the cheek and say, "We will be in my office." She turns around and goes back into the bedroom, closing the door. I look at my grandfather, wondering why he acted like that towards Hollyn. I close the door behind us after we enter my office, and my grandfather looks at me and says, "Ian, you need to watch who you're messing around with. They will take you for everything you have. We have." "Grandfather, Hollyn is not like that. She's a lawyer and has her own law firm. You can tell it by the way she dressed." I looked at him and raised my eyebrows. "Anyways, her being a lawyer is even worse. She knows just how to legally take you for what you are worth." "She doesn't know how much I am worth," I say, irritated. "Next thing you know, Ian, she's going to end up getting pregnant to trap you," Grandfather says, sitting in my chair at my desk. I'm done talking about Hollyn, I say, remembering what he had said about my father. "Do you think he could actually be released?" I ask him. "I am not sure, son, but if he does, he will go through a rehabilitation process and then be free." "Fuck," I yell, pacing the floor. "Ian, watch your mouth," my grandfather says. "He has taken so much from me, and I'm not going to let him take this from me," I say under my breath, but loud enough for my grandfather to hear. "Take what, Ian?" my grandfather asked. "This is my life," I say, throwing my hands up, pointing at the ceiling. I lower my head and swallow the lump that is formed in my throat and say in a whisper, "Her." "Ian, how could he take her away from you?" my grandfather asks, walking over to me. "She will find out everything that fucker has done and how messed up I really am," I say with a concerned tone. "Ian, you are not responsible for how your father turned out. You were just a boy. I am proud of who you have become, and you should be too," he says, standing up from the chair. "I will be leaving after tomorrow, and I would like for you to come have dinner," he says, walking out of the room to the front door. He opens the front door, looking back at me, and says, "I will call you with details." After I shut the door, I stand with my hands pressed up against the door, thinking about the realization that my father could be free from jail. I gather myself and walk into the bedroom where Hollyn is laying on the bed reading a book. She looks up at me with her gray eyes as if she is looking through every layer of my skin into my soul. I start to feel myself suffocating inside. I need to get out of here. I walk over to the drawer and grab a t-shirt, quickly pulling it over my head, then my shoes, and sit on the edge of the bed to put them on. I can feel Hollyn's eyes burning into me, but she never says a word, and the silence is making the feeling of suffocation worse. I have to get out of here for a little while. I will be back later, I say, walking out of the room. I walk to the garage and get on my motorcycle. I put on my helmet and speed out of the garage. As I'm going down the road, I look back, and Hollyn is standing at the front door watching me. After speeding down the road and running just about every red light, I arrive at the familiar old brick building and park my bike. I walk inside, and immediately my attention is directed to the boxing ring in the center of the large room. Max, a hefty bald-headed man, walks up to me. "Ian, I haven't seen you in weeks," he says. "Max, do you have an opening for me?" I ask, looking at the boxing ring. Max is the owner and personal trainer who used to work with me daily. I haven't been back since the night I pushed Hollyn away and she left my house. He slams a pair of boxing gloves into my chest and he gets in the ring. I take my shirt off and throw it on a bench. I wrap my hands with cotton wraps before I get into the ring. I come to the boxing ring because I feel like the rage of emotions that run through my body comes out with each blow I give. Max grabs 2 boxing mitts and puts them on his hands. I step into the ring and put on the boxing gloves that Max handed me. I focus on the mitts and do 5 repetitions with my right hand. I switch hands and do another 5 repetitions with my left hand. All right, Ian, both hands, Max says. I start punching the pads with my right hand and then my left. I punch faster and faster to get all of my rage out until everything in the room goes silent and black. All I see are my fist and the punching bag. I can feel the sweat running down my back and face. My muscles start to burn and ache. I hear my name being called from a distance, but then I realize it isn't from a distance. Ian, slow down, man, Max says, trying to hold his balance from the impact of my punches. I stop punching the mitts and look at Max. Man, Ian, you have some serious shit going on. That's the hardest you've ever punched, Max says, putting down the mitts, then rubbing his hands. You could say that, I say, trying to catch my breath. I look around and notice that everyone had left but Max and me. Are you closing early? I ask Max, stepping out of the ring, taking my gloves off. Yeah, I have a date with a nice-looking honey who came in here the other day. Well, don't do anything I wouldn't do, I say with a smile. Do you have a sweet little piece you were sharing your sheets with? Max asks, throwing me a bottle of water. Yeah, but she's more than a piece, I say, sitting on the bench wiping my face with a towel. In other words, she has tattooed you. Tattooed? I ask, looking confused. You know, when a woman leaves a mark that becomes permanent, Max says, raising his eyebrows. I better go. I don't get this sexy overnight, he says, smiling. You can stay and lock up if you want. Do you still know the code? Yeah, thanks, man, I say, walking over to the punching bag, putting my gloves back on. I am punching the bag, thinking about what Max said. Hollyn has definitely tattooed my fucking heart.